The night she vanished. The quiet hum of a small apartment filled the room as Mark lay fast asleep, drifting in the comforting lull of night. But suddenly he awoke with a start. His hand instinctively reached out to the other side of the bed, only to find it cold and empty. Heart pounding, he called out, "Nera?" His voice echoed in the silence, but there was no response. He searched the bedroom, bathroom, even the small kitchen. Nothing. It was as if she had vanished into thin air, leaving no trace of her presence. As Mark stood there, struggling to comprehend her sudden disappearance, one thought weighed heavily on his mind: Leia, their young daughter, with her blue-tinted skin and wide, violet eyes, would soon be waking up. How could he possibly explain this to her? He took a deep breath, feeling a pang of sadness and helplessness in his chest. Sure enough, a tiny voice soon broke the silence. "Dad, where's Mom?" He turned to see Leia standing in the hallway, her large eyes filled with worry. Mark forced a gentle smile, kneeling to hug her tightly. "Mom have to go away for a little while," he murmured, brushing her hair softly. "But everything's going to be okay, sweetheart." Leia looked up at him, her lower lip trembling slightly. But why didn't she say goodbye? Mark didn't have an answer for her. All he could do was hold her close, trying to shield her from the pain of loss and confusion that he himself could barely understand. The alien interrogation. The Wanderer shuddered as it was gently docked inside the massive alien vessel. Mark and Leia stood in the ship's cramped cockpit, both feeling the weight of the unknown pressing on them. The eerie silence was finally broken by a faint hissing sound as the docking bay pressurized. The hatch door of the Wanderer slid open slowly, revealing the harsh white light of the docking bay outside. Leia clung to Mark's side, her violet eyes wide with fear and wonder. "Dad," she whispered, "are they going to hurt us?" Mark squeezed her hand, forcing a reassuring smile despite his own anxiety. "No, sweetheart, they're just curious. We'll be okay." But his words felt hollow as he took a cautious step forward, shielding Leia behind him. 3 towering figures stood at the threshold, their metallic frames glinting under the bright lights. Their heads tilted in unison as they studied Mark and Leia, their eyes, clusters of softly glowing lenses, scanning them with an intensity that made Mark's skin prickle. The tallest figure stepped forward, and in a strange, melodic hum, introduced itself. "Greetings, travelers. I am Xantor of the Celestial Concordant," the alien said, each word resonating with a metallic chime. "You have entered our space, and we detected your vessel's warp signature. Tell us, what brings you so far from your home world?" Mark hesitated, glancing down at Leia before answering. "We're looking for someone, a woman named Nera. She's Leia's mother. She vanished some time ago, and we believe she may be somewhere out here." Xantor tilted its head, a faint hum escaping its metallic frame. "Nera," it repeated thoughtfully, as if the name stirred a distant memory. "And why would one of our kind be bonded with a human?" Mark's pulse quickened. "Your kind, you mean Nera was one of you?" Xantor exchanged glances with the other Celestials, their eye clusters flickering in silent communication. "It is rare, but not impossible. We have encountered individuals who form connections beyond their own species, though they are often viewed with curiosity, even suspicion." Xantor's eyes shifted to Leia, studying her with a new intensity. "The child is proof of such a union." Leia shifted nervously, tightening her grip on Mark's hand. "Dad, I don't like how they're looking at me." Mark shot Xantor a wary look. "We're not here to be studied. If you know anything about Nera, I need you to tell me." Xantor held up a silvery appendage, a gesture that seemed almost apologetic. "You misunderstand our intentions, Mark Reeves. We mean no harm to you or your daughter. However, our interest in her is genuine. Such a blend of genetics is unusual. If you allow us to study her abilities, we may be able to help you locate Nera." Mark hesitated, feeling the weight of the decision pressing on him. He didn't want to expose Leia to any potential risks, but they had come so far, and this was the closest lead they'd ever had. He turned to Leia, her eyes wide and uncertain, yet tinged with a glimmer of curiosity. "It's up to you, Leia," he said gently. "Do you feel okay with this?" Leia looked at the Celestials, her small shoulders straightening. "I'll do it, if it helps us find Mom." The Celestial testing chambers. They were led through gleaming corridors, lined with shimmering metal panels that seemed to pulse with a soft light. Leia gazed around in awe, her fingers brushing against the walls, which responded with gentle waves of color. Mark couldn't shake the feeling of unease, but Leia's fascination eased his nerves slightly. For the first time in a long time, she looked like she was enjoying herself. At the end of the corridor, they reached a vast chamber filled with floating orbs of light, each orb connected to a series of delicate, crystalline structures. Xanta gestured toward a central platform. "This is the testing nexus. Here, we will observe your daughter's abilities. She need only relax and let her mind flow freely." Leia looked up at Mark, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "It's okay, sweetheart," he assured her. "Just be yourself." Leia stepped onto the platform, closing her eyes as the Celestials activated the nexus. The orbs of light began to hum, emitting soft waves of energy that pulsed around her. Suddenly, a faint blue glow appeared around Leia, her eyes opening, filled with a radiant violet light. Mark watched, awestruck, as the crystalline structures around her responded, shifting and forming patterns that pulsed in harmony with Leia's energy. The Celestials murmured in fascination, their lenses whirring as they recorded every detail. Xanta's voice resonated through the chamber. "Remarkable. Her energy is unlike anything we've encountered. It is as if she bridges two worlds, both human and something beyond." Leia turned to Mark, her face lighting up with excitement. "Dad, I can feel them. I can feel their thoughts. They're curious, just like me." Mark's heart swelled with pride and relief. For the first time, Leia wasn't just a target of fear and misunderstanding. Here, she was a marvel, an enigma worthy of admiration. An offer too tempting. After the tests concluded, Xanta led them to a grand observatory that offered a breathtaking view of the stars. Planets and nebulas stretched out before them, an endless expanse of colors and lights that made Earth feel like a distant memory. "We are en route to the Andromeda Conference," Xanta explained, "a gathering of species from across the galaxy. There, you may find allies who could help you locate Neera, or at the very least, provide you with valuable information." Mark felt a surge of hope, but also a pang of skepticism. And what's the catch? You don't just offer this kind of help for free. Xanta's eye clusters flickered thoughtfully. "You are perceptive, Mark Reeves. We do have an interest in your daughter. Her unique abilities could be of great value to our research on interspecies genetics and empathic resonance. In exchange for allowing us to study her further, we offer you a place aboard our ship and safe passage to the Andromeda Conference." Leia looked up at Mark, her face a mixture of hope and fear. "Dad, do you think we'll find Mom there?" Mark hesitated, torn between his protective instincts and the overwhelming desire to find Neera. The Celestials seemed genuine, but the risks were undeniable. However, the thought of returning to Earth, where Leia's every day was a struggle, felt even more daunting. He knelt beside her, taking her hands in his. "We're going to keep looking, sweetheart, and if this helps us find Mom, then I think it's worth it." Leia nodded, determination filling her young face. "Then I'm ready." Journey to the Andromeda Conference. The days aboard the celestial ship passed quickly. Mark and Leia found themselves surrounded by wonders they'd never dreamed of, advanced technology, strange alien artifacts, and a vast library of knowledge collected from countless civilizations. Leia was especially fascinated by the library, spending hours poring over holographic displays that showcased alien landscapes, strange creatures, and unfamiliar languages. Her natural curiosity seemed boundless, and Mark marveled at how quickly she adapted to her new surroundings. One evening, as they watched a glowing nebula drift by through the ship's massive viewing bay, Leia leaned against Mark, her expression contemplative. "Do you think Mom's out there somewhere?" Mark's heart tightened, and he put his arm around her. "I do, Leia, and I promise we won't stop until we find her." Leia smiled up at him, her eyes filled with a new sense of hope. For the first time since they'd left Earth, she felt like they were truly on a journey, one that could bring them closer to the answers they'd been seeking for so long. The arrival at Andromeda. After several weeks of travel, they finally arrived at the Andromeda Conference, a sprawling interstellar gathering that spanned a series of interconnected space stations. The sheer scale of it was mind-boggling, with delegates from hundreds of worlds converging to share knowledge, forge alliances, and celebrate the diversity of life in the galaxy. Mark and Leia were overwhelmed by the sights and sounds of the conference. Strange languages filled the air, vibrant holographic displays showcased alien cultures, and creatures of every shape and size roamed the corridors. Leia's eyes sparkled with excitement, her initial fear giving way to awe as she took in the incredible diversity around her. As they navigated the bustling hallways, Xanto guided them to a quieter chamber. "Here we can begin our inquiries regarding Nera's whereabouts. It may take some time, but rest assured, we will do everything in our power to assist you." Mark nodded, feeling a renewed sense of hope. For the first time in a long time, he felt like they were truly on the path to finding Nera, and perhaps a place where Leia could belong without fear or judgment. As they waited, Leia reached up, taking Mark's hand in her own. "Dad," she whispered, "do you think we'll really find her?" Mark looked down at his daughter, his heart swelling with pride and determination. "Yes, Leia," he replied, his voice filled with conviction. "I believe we will, and wherever she is, we'll make sure she knows we're coming." The Andromeda Conference was just the beginning of their journey, a step toward a future that was still uncertain but filled with endless possibilities. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, united by their love, their hope, and the unbreakable bond between father and daughter. Secrets among the stars. The Andromeda Conference was more than Mark or Leia had ever imagined. The gathering was a vibrant mix of alien cultures, futuristic technology, and ideas beyond anything they'd seen on Earth. Yet, despite the awe-inspiring atmosphere, a sense of urgency weighed heavily on Mark. They were here for one reason: to find answers about Nera. Inside the main hall, holographic banners floated through the air, displaying greetings in dozens of languages, some marked by strange symbols, others in rhythmic sounds and clicks. Alien delegates moved gracefully through the crowd, their robes and attire flowing like liquid, while others hovered, glided, or slithered along the ground. Leia clung to Mark's side, her eyes wide with wonder. "Dad, look at that," she whispered, pointing to a group of beings with translucent bodies that pulsed with colorful lights, as if their emotions were visible through their skin. Mark smiled, resting a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Incredible, isn't it? There's so much out here we don't know." They followed Xantor through the bustling throngs of creatures, finally reaching a grand circular chamber filled with tall, shimmering screens and sleek, hovering consoles. In the center of the room stood a figure whose presence immediately commanded attention, a tall, elegant alien with deep violet skin and silver, gleaming eyes. "Mark, Leia," Xantor began, his voice a soft hum. "This is Cora, the Grand Curator of the Andromeda Conference. She has access to knowledge gathered from across the galaxy and may be able to help in your search." Cora's gaze settled on Leia with an intensity that made Mark uneasy, but the alien's expression softened into a serene smile as she inclined her head toward them. "Welcome, travelers. I have been told of your unique journey. I understand you seek information about one of our kind, Nera, correct?" Mark felt a surge of hope. "Yes," he said, his voice earnest. "She disappeared from Earth, and I think she may have come back here. I need to know why she left, and if she's still out there." Cora's eyes gleamed as she considered his words. "Very well, but knowledge comes with its own price. In return for my assistance, I would like your daughter's help in a special task. Mark stiffened. What kind of task? Cora's expression was calm, almost warm. Leia's empathic abilities are rare and invaluable. There is a network of ancient consciousnesses within our star system, a collective intelligence known as the HFY. We have long sought to communicate with them, but they respond only to those with a strong empathic resonance. Your daughter may be the key to unlocking their secrets. In exchange, I will help you find Neera. Leia looked up at Mark, her expression uncertain but intrigued. Dad, do you think I can do it? Mark felt a mix of pride and protectiveness. Leia's empathic gifts had always been a source of mystery, something he didn't fully understand. But if this was their chance to find Neera, he knew they had to try. He knelt down, placing a comforting hand on Leia's shoulder. If you want to try, then I believe in you, and I'll be with you every step of the way. Leia nodded, a small spark of determination in her eyes. Then I'll do it. The call of the HFY. Under Cora's guidance, they traveled to the edge of the Andromeda system, where a strange phenomenon awaited them, a vast, swirling nebula that glowed with hues of green, purple, and gold. This was the gateway to the HFY, an ancient intelligence that had existed long before most known species in the galaxy. Cora led them to a large, spherical room aboard the Concordance ship. At the center of the chamber was a shimmering pool of liquid light that pulsed with a steady rhythm as though alive. Leia, Cora said gently, you will sit here. The HFY will reach out to you through this medium. Let your mind relax and simply listen. Mark watched as Leia took her place beside the pool, her face both nervous and curious. He could feel his own heart racing, torn between worry and pride. The moment Leia closed her eyes, the pool's glow intensified, filling the chamber with a gentle warmth. For several moments, nothing happened. Then, the room grew heavy with a palpable presence, as if an invisible force had awakened and was watching them. Mark felt a shiver run down his spine as he looked around, searching for the source of the feeling. Leia's voice broke the silence. I can hear them. They're so old, Dad. They're older than stars. Cora inclined her head, her gaze fixed intently on Leia. Tell them who you are, child. Let them know you seek knowledge. Leia took a deep breath, her voice trembling slightly. My name is Leia. I'm different, like you. I'm looking for my mom. She's not from Earth, and I think she might be one of you. The silence stretched on, thick and almost oppressive. Then Leia gasped, her eyes widening as the liquid light rippled and swirled in complex patterns. They remember her, Leia whispered. They know Neera. She was here, but she left. She was looking for something important. They can't see her now, but they know she went toward the Orion cluster. Mark's heart raced. They had a lead. Neera had been here, not just in his imagination or a hopeful dream, but here, within reach of an ancient intelligence. But then Leia's expression darkened and her body tensed. They're warning us, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. They're saying we shouldn't follow. There's danger. They called it the Rift. It's a place where the laws of the universe break down. Cora's face tightened, her silver eyes glinting with a mixture of awe and fear. The Rift is a forbidden region, a place of mystery and peril. Few who venture into its depths return unchanged. If your Neera went there, then she was either very brave or very desperate. Mark swallowed hard, feeling a knot of fear twist in his stomach. But if she went there, then I have to go after her. I can't leave her in danger, not without knowing if she's safe. Cora inclined her head. Your loyalty is admirable, Mark Reeves. However, I must caution you, the journey to the Rift is treacherous, and even with the Concordance technology, it will not be easy. But if this is your wish, we will assist you in preparing for the journey. Mark nodded, determination hardening his resolve. Thank you, Cora. I know it's dangerous, but I can't abandon her. Preparations for the Rift. Over the next few days, Mark and Leah remained aboard the Concordance ship as they prepared for the journey into the rift. Leah trained with the Celestials, learning to strengthen her empathic abilities and gaining more control over her emotions. She was a quick learner, and Mark marveled at how much she was growing, her courage shining even in the face of the unknown. Meanwhile, Xanto and Quoro worked to reinforce the Wanderer, upgrading its systems and equipping it with advanced technology that would help them navigate the dangerous region. They added new shielding, enhanced propulsion, and a series of advanced scanning instruments designed to detect the rift's unique distortions. On their final night before departure, Mark and Leah stood in the observation bay, watching the stars outside the ship. The vastness of space stretched before them, filled with both promise and peril. "Are you scared, Dad?" Leah asked, her voice small but steady. Mark looked down at her, his hand resting on her shoulder. "I am. But sometimes being scared means you're doing something important. And right now, finding your mom is the most important thing in the universe." Leia leaned against him, her face thoughtful. "The Yotha said it would be dangerous, but they also said I was strong enough to handle it. Do you think I am?" Mark smiled, pride swelling in his chest. "Leah, I think you're the strongest person I know. You're braver than I could ever be." Leia's eyes sparkled with a mixture of joy and determination. "Then let's do this, Dad. Let's find Mom." Into the unknown. The next day, they boarded the Wanderer, now outfitted with the Celestials' upgrades. As the ship's engines rolled to life, Mark and Leah waved goodbye to Xantor and Quora, who watched from the docking bay, their expressions solemn yet hopeful. With a deep breath, Mark set the course for the Orion cluster, where the rift awaited. Leia sat beside him, her hands clutching her favorite stuffed animal, her face a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The journey was long and fraught with challenges. As they approached the rift, the stars seemed to dim, replaced by swirling clouds of cosmic debris and eerie, flickering lights. The laws of physics grew unpredictable, causing the ship's systems to malfunction at odd intervals. One day, as they drifted through a field of shimmering particles, Leia looked up at Mark, her voice trembling. "Dad, I feel something. It's close." Mark checked the sensors, his heart pounding. There, in the distance, was a faint signal, a trace of a ship that matched Nera's signature. "Leia, you did it." Mark's voice was filled with awe and relief. "You found her signal." Leia's face lit up, a mixture of pride and excitement. "I knew we could do it." As they drew closer, a shadow loomed in the distance, the outline of a ship barely visible against the dark backdrop of the rift. Mark's heart raced. They were close, closer than ever before. But even as hope surged within him, a voice echoed in his mind, a warning from the Yotha's message. The rift is a place of danger, a place where even the bravest may lose themselves. Mark pushed the thought aside, focusing on the signal that lay before them. They had come too far to turn back now. Together, he and Leah braced themselves for whatever lay ahead, determined to reunite their family against the odds, no matter the cost. The shadows of the rift. As the Wanderer drew closer to the rift, the already unpredictable environment transformed into something truly otherworldly. The stars became faint and distorted, as if they were mere illusions, shifting and dancing across the black void. Nebulas swirled in strange patterns, casting an eerie light that shifted from green to purple to silver in an endless cycle. The ship's sensors flickered, struggling to make sense of their surroundings, and Mark could feel a chill of uncertainty seeping into the cockpit. Leia sat beside him, her face illuminated by the dim glow of the controls. Her gaze was fixed on the darkness outside, her violet eyes wide with a mixture of fear and wonder. "Dad," she whispered, "it feels alive, like something's watching us." Mark forced a reassuring smile, though he felt the weight of her words pressing on him. "It's just the rift, honey. It's different, yes, but remember what Cora said. We're prepared, we'll be okay." Leah nodded, but her expression remained tense, her small hands clutching her stuffed animal tightly. She was brave, braver than anyone her age should have to be. But Mark knew the dangers of the rift were beyond anything they'd ever faced. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of their purpose. Somewhere out there in this twisted realm was Nera, and he wouldn't leave until he found her. Echoes in the void. Hours passed as they navigated the shifting landscape of the rift. Strange energies pulsed around them, creating patterns that seemed almost deliberate, like invisible hands guiding them deeper into the unknown. The ship's shields flickered sporadically, but the Celestial's upgrades held, giving the Wanderer just enough stability to push forward. Then, without warning, a sudden signal blared through the ship's communications system, a faint, crackling transmission that sent chills down Mark's spine. He leaned forward, adjusting the controls, trying to clear the static. "Mark, is that you?" Mark's heart skipped a beat. The voice was faint but unmistakable. "Nera," he called out, hope surging in his chest. "Nera, can you hear me? It's me, Mark. I'm here with Leia. We came to find you." The transmission crackled, and for a moment, there was only silence. Then her voice came through again, weak but unmistakable. "Mark, Leia, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to leave you." Tears stung Mark's eyes as he gripped the console, his voice breaking. "Nera, where are you? We're in the rift. Just tell us how to find you." The signal wavered, her voice fading in and out. "Trapped. The rift changes everything. Be careful." Leia's hand slipped into Mark's, her small fingers cold and trembling. "Dad, I can feel her," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. "It's like she's close, but far away too." Mark nodded, squeezing her hand. "We're going to find her, Leia. Just hold on." But even as he spoke, the transmission cut out, leaving only silence. Mark stared at the controls, his mind racing. Nera was close, he could feel it. But in the rift, proximity was deceptive. He glanced down at Leia, who was gazing intently into the void, her expression distant, as if she were listening to something only she could hear. "Dad," she said slowly, her voice tinged with an eerie certainty. "We need to go left." I don't know how I know, but I just feel it." Mark hesitated, but something in her tone, a calmness beyond her years, convinced him. Trusting his daughter's instincts, he adjusted the ship's course, steering them deeper into the strange currents of the rift. The living shadows. As they drifted along the new path, a strange phenomenon began to unfold. Shadows appeared in the distance, vague shapes moving through the darkness, their forms flickering like wraiths. Mark's grip tightened on the controls, his gaze fixed on the swirling figures. Leia's voice was barely a whisper. "They're watching us, but they're not angry. They're lost, like us." Mark glanced at her, his mind racing. "Can you talk to them, Leia? Maybe they know where Nera is." Leia closed her eyes, her face filled with concentration. For several long moments, the silence was complete. Then, slowly, she opened her eyes, her expression distant and somber. "They're not alive, not really. They're echoes. Memories of people who got lost in the rift a long time ago. They're trapped here, and they don't know how to leave." Mark's heart sank. This place was more dangerous than he'd realized. A trap for lost souls, drifting eternally through a realm where time and space were twisted beyond recognition. "Tell them," he said softly, "that we'll find a way out. That we're looking for someone we love, and we're not going to stop until we find her." Leia nodded, closing her eyes once more. A gentle glow surrounded her, and for a moment, Mark thought he saw the shadows pause, their dark forms turning toward them, as if listening. Then, one by one, they began to fade, disappearing into the void, leaving only silence in their wake. The rift's guardian. Just as they began to move forward, the ship's systems suddenly shut down, plunging them into darkness. The Wanderer drifted aimlessly, powerless against the currents of the rift. Mark's pulse quickened as he frantically tried to restart the engines, but the controls were unresponsive. Then, out of the shadows, a massive figure emerged, its form a twisting, shifting mass of light and darkness. It hovered before them, pulsating with a strange energy that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of the rift. Mark could feel its presence, powerful and ancient, a force that had existed here for eons. Leia's voice was a soft murmur, filled with awe. "Dad, that's the Guardian. The Yothar warned us about it. It protects the rift, and it doesn't let anyone leave without permission." Mark swallowed, his hands clenching the controls. "Then we'll have to convince it to let us through. Stay close, Leia." Leia stepped forward, her small frame dwarfed by the towering presence outside the ship. Her violet eyes were calm, her expression serene as she addressed the Guardian. "We're here to find someone we love. She's trapped here, like you. Please, let us pass so we can bring her home." The Guardian's form flickered, its colors shifting, as if it were considering her words. Then, in a voice that seemed to echo within their minds, it spoke. "Love, a force as ancient as the stars, but many have come before you and few have returned. The rift takes as it pleases, and your loved one may already be lost." Leia lifted her chin, her gaze steady. "She's not lost. She's waiting for us, and we won't leave until we find her." The Guardian paused, its form pulsating with a strange light. For a moment, Mark feared it would refuse them, trapping them in this twisted realm forever. But then it shifted aside, its voice a low murmur. "Very well, but beware. The rift does not forgive those who enter lightly. Go and find what you seek, if you dare." The ship's systems whirred back to life, the controls lighting up as power returned. Mark gripped the controls, his heart pounding with both relief and apprehension. "Thank you," he said, his voice barely a whisper. As they passed through the Guardian's shadow, Leia's hand slipped into his, her small fingers warm and reassuring. "We're close, Dad. I can feel her. She's waiting for us." The heart of the rift. The deeper they ventured, the more surreal their surroundings became. Light and shadow twisted together, forming patterns that seemed to pulse with an eerie rhythm, as if the rift itself were alive. The ship's sensors struggled to keep up, and Mark found himself relying on Leia's instincts to navigate the maze-like paths. Finally, they reached a vast open space where a faint, familiar energy pulsed. Mark's breath caught as he saw it, a small, damaged vessel, drifting alone in the darkness. The ship's design was sleek and alien, its once lustrous hull now dim and scarred. "Nera," he breathed, his voice choked with emotion. "Leia, that's her ship." Leia's face lit up with a mixture of relief and joy. "We found her, Dad. We found Mom." Mark guided the wanderer closer, maneuvering carefully to dock alongside Nera's ship. The process was slow and delicate, but after a few tense moments, the two vessels connected. Mark activated the airlock, his heart racing as he prepared to step across. He turned to Leia, his voice filled with anticipation. "Stay close to me, okay?" Leia nodded, her eyes shining with excitement. "I'm ready." Together, they crossed into Nera's ship, the air stale and cold. The interior was dimly lit, the walls covered in strange, flickering symbols. Mark's heart pounded as he moved through the narrow corridors, calling out her name. "Nera, it's me, Mark. I'm here with Leia. We came to find you." A faint sound echoed down the hall, a soft, choked sob that sent a surge of emotion through him. He followed the sound, his steps quickening as he approached a small chamber at the end of the corridor. There, standing in the dim light, was Nera. Her once bright eyes were weary, her face lined with exhaustion, but when she saw them, a look of pure relief and joy filled her expression. "Mark, Leia," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You found me." Mark rushed forward, pulling her into a tight embrace, his own tears falling freely. "I promised you I'd come back for you," he murmured, his voice filled with love and determination. Leia stepped forward, her eyes filled with wonder and happiness. "Mom," she whispered, reaching out to touch her mother's hand. "We missed you." Nera knelt down, wrapping Leia in her arms, her own tears mingling with Leia's. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I wanted to come back, but the rift wouldn't let me go." Mark placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It's okay. We're together now, and we're going to get out of here. All of us." As they stood together, reunited against all odds, the shadows of the rift seemed to close in around them, the darkness both a threat and a reminder of the incredible journey they had undertaken. But with Nera beside them, Mark felt a new strength, a resolve that nothing, not even the mysteries of the universe, could break. Together, they prepared to face whatever lay ahead, united by a bond that no force in the galaxy could sever. The escape plan, reunited at last, Mark, Leia, and Nera stood together, each filled with relief, love, and the weight of all they had endured. The rift's strange energies pulsed around them, casting an eerie light over Nera's ship as it drifted beside the Wanderer. Nera's hand clasped Mark's tightly, and her other arm was wrapped protectively around Leia. For the first time in years, they were together again. But the joy of their reunion was shadowed by the reality that they were still deep within the rift, a place that defied the laws of space and time. Mark took a deep breath, his mind racing. "Nera, how did you get trapped here? We searched everywhere for you." Nera's eyes filled with a mixture of regret and sorrow. "I didn't mean to leave. I found myself pulled here, into the rift. I was on the trail of something ancient, something that promised answers about my origins, but it was more powerful than I realized. Before I knew it, I was lost, and the rift, well, it doesn't easily let go." Leia clung to her mother, her voice soft but full of conviction. "But we found you, Mom. Now we can leave together." Mark nodded, squeezing Nera's hand. "Leia's right. We're not leaving without you, and we'll find a way out, no matter what." Nera managed a small, grateful smile. "There may be a way, but it won't be easy. The rift has guardians, and it plays by its own rules. If we're going to escape, we'll need to work together, and we'll have to be fast. The longer we stay, the more it distorts reality, and it's only a matter of time before it starts affecting us too." Mark exchanged a determined look with Nera. "Then let's not waste any more time. Tell us what we need to do." A race against time. With Nera's guidance, they began outfitting both ships for the escape. The Wanderer, with its reinforced shields and advanced scanning equipment, would lead the way, while Nera's ship would follow closely behind. They worked tirelessly, installing energy stabilizers and recalibrating their navigation systems to withstand the strange gravitational forces within the rift. As they prepared, Leia moved between them, helping where she could, her small hands steady and focused. She was quiet, but Mark could see the determination in her eyes. Once everything was ready, they gathered in the Wanderer's cockpit. Nera's face was drawn with tension as she studied the strange symbols flickering across the screens, which showed the layout of the rift's shifting passages. She pointed to a specific pattern, a series of overlapping loops that seemed to form a pathway. "This is our best shot," she said, tracing the pattern with her finger. "It's a natural corridor that occasionally opens when the rift's energies align. If we time it right, we can ride the current through most of the dangerous areas. But we have to be precise. If we miss the window, we'll be thrown deeper into the rift, and there's no telling if we'll get another chance." Mark's jaw tightened. "How much time do we have?" Nera checked the controls, her face grave. "Minutes. If we're going to do this, we need to go now." Leia looked up at them, her expression resolute. "We can do this. We have to." Nera and Mark exchanged a look, a shared understanding of the risks and the stakes. With a final nod, they took their positions, each ready to do whatever it took to keep their family together. The rift's wrath. As they began their escape, the rift's energy intensified, swirling around them like a storm. Lightning-like arcs of energy flashed outside, creating a cascade of colors and shadows that flickered across their ships. Mark focused on the controls, guiding the Wanderer through the narrow, twisting corridors, while Nera's ship followed close behind. Leia sat beside him, her gaze locked on the patterns outside, her empathic senses heightened by the strange energies around them. "Dad," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The rift, it doesn't want us to leave." Mark glanced down at her, his face filled with concern. "Leia, can you feel it? Can you sense a way through?" She nodded, closing her eyes and reaching out with her mind. "It's angry. It doesn't like it when people leave, but it's also sad, like it's been lonely for a long time." Mark's heart clenched at her words. The rift was more than just a place. It was an entity, a presence that had grown attached to those who ventured into its depths. But he couldn't let it keep them here. They had come too far, fought too hard, to let their journey end in this strange prison. "Leia," he said softly, "tell it we're sorry. We're sorry for disturbing it, but we have to go. We have a family, and we need to be together." Leia's eyes glistened with understanding. She nodded, focusing her thoughts, sending a message of empathy and farewell. For a brief moment, the energy outside seemed to calm, as if the rift was listening. But then, without warning, a violent surge of energy exploded in front of them, blocking their path. The ship rocked violently, alarms blaring as Mark struggled to regain control. Nera's voice crackled over the comms, her tone urgent. "Mark, we've got a problem. The energy's destabilizing. It's creating barriers." Mark clenched his jaw, his mind racing. The rift was trying to stop them, its anger lashing out in unpredictable bursts. He glanced at Leia, who looked up at him, her face filled with a calm certainty. "Dad, I think I can help. If I reach out, I might be able to calm it down." Mark's heart raced at the thought. "Leia, that's dangerous. The rift is unpredictable. If it tries to pull you in." Leia shook her head, her eyes filled with determination. "I can do it, Dad. I can feel it. It doesn't really want to hurt us. It's just afraid." Mark took a deep breath, his heart pounding. He didn't want to risk her safety, but he could see the strength in her eyes, the quiet courage that had carried them this far. He placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice filled with love and pride. "All right, Leia, I trust you." The heart of the rift. Leia closed her eyes, her small form bathed in a soft, violet glow as she reached out with her mind. Mark watched, holding his breath as the ship drifted, surrounded by the swirling energies of the rift. For a moment, nothing happened, but then a calm seemed to settle over them, as if the rift itself were pausing to listen. Leia's voice was a soft murmur, barely audible. "We're just trying to go home. We don't want to leave you alone, but we have to be with our family. Please, let us go." The energy around them pulsed, shifting and swaying in response. The violent currents seemed to ease, the path before them clearing, as if the rift were granting them passage. Mark glanced at Nera's ship, seeing her face appear on the screen, her expression filled with awe and pride as she looked at Leia. "She's incredible, Mark," Nera whispered. "I knew she had abilities, but she's reaching something ancient, something even we can't fully understand." Mark's heart swelled with pride and love as he looked at his daughter, his voice thick with emotion. "Leia, you did it. The path is open." Leia opened her eyes, her face glowing with relief and joy. "We're going home. Breaking free." With the path clear, Mark guided the Wanderer forward, Nera's ship following closely. The rift's energies remained calm, as if holding its breath, allowing them to pass without interference. The ships moved swiftly through the twisting corridors, the strange colors fading as they neared the outer edges of the rift. But just as they were about to break free, the calm shattered. A final surge of energy erupted behind them, a powerful wave that sent both ships spinning. The Wanderer's systems flickered, the controls shaking in Mark's hands as he fought to keep them steady. Leia gasped, clutching her seat as the ship shuddered. "Dad, it's trying to pull us back." Mark gritted his teeth, his hands steady on the controls. "Hold on, Leia. We're almost there. He activated the ship's thrusters, pushing them forward with every ounce of power the engines could muster. The energy wave crashed over them, dragging them backward, but Mark held his ground, fighting against the pull. He glanced at the view screen, seeing Nera's ship beside them, her voice filled with urgency. "Mark, we have to push through. This is our last chance." Together, they poured everything into the thrusters, the engines roaring as they broke through the final barrier. The darkness of the rift gave way to open space, stars shimmering around them as they escaped the twisting, chaotic realm. A moment of silence filled the cockpit, and then Leia let out a gasp of joy, her face lighting up as she looked out at the stars. "We made it. We're free." Mark exhaled, relief flooding through him as he glanced at Nera's image on the screen. She looked back at him, her face filled with love and gratitude. "We did it," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "We're finally free." Mark smiled, reaching out to touch the screen. "And we're together. That's all that matters." A new beginning. As they drifted through open space, free from the rift's grip, Mark, Nera, and Leia allowed themselves a moment of peace. They were bruised and exhausted, but together. The rift was behind them, and a new future stretched out before them, filled with possibilities. Mark placed a gentle hand on Leia's shoulder, his heart swelling with pride. "Leia, you saved us. You're stronger than I ever knew." Leia looked up at him, her eyes shining. "I just wanted us to be together. That's all I wanted." Nera's voice came through the comms, filled with warmth. "And you made it happen, Leia. You're incredible." As they moved forward, leaving the mysteries of the rift behind, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as a family. They had braved the depths of space, overcome the rift's wrath, and found their way back to each other. And together, they would face whatever came next, bound by love, resilience, and the unbreakable bond they had forged in the darkest corners of the universe.